Okay. All right. So we're going to be in 2 Samuel for quite a while now, because there's a lot of information about what happened during this time that is included in 2 Samuel, but is not mentioned at all in Chronicles. 2 Samuel 11. In the spring, at the time when kings go off to war, David sent Joab out with the king's men and the whole Israelite army. So, in this account, it specifically says David sending Joab out. The previous account just said that Joab went out. They destroyed the Ammonites and besieged Rabbah, but David remained in Jerusalem. So this is during the Ammon war. This is happening. This is not that we read about that war in Ammon to help fill in the context of what's going to happen here. That David is at home in Jerusalem in the palace, and he is not out overseeing or supervising the fighting against Ammon, as apparently he's supposed to, because the text in both Samuel and Chronicles is specific to say that kings should go out to war. Joab is not the king. Joab is the one going out to war, but the text in both Samuel and Chronicles says that kings go out to war. And David is the king, and he's not going out to war. So he's going to get into some trouble. One evening, David got up from his bed and walked around on the roof of the palace. I don't know if he was having trouble sleeping, or if he was just out to enjoy the night air, the spring air, I don't know. From the roof, he saw a woman bathing. This is a ritual purity bath that she's taking, as we'll find out later. She's not just bathing for the sake of bathing. She's taking a ritual purity bath. She has just finished a period of uncleanness due to menstruation, and so she is bathing to clean herself from that. The woman was very beautiful, and David sent someone to find out about her. The man said, "Isn't this Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam and the wife of Uriah the Hittite?" So these are people that David knows. He doesn't know her, apparently. But let's read about Uriah the Hittite and Eliam, because their names are listed in the list of by David's mighty men here in 2 Samuel 23. We go through this entire full list of names. And the very last one down here, first of all, along the way, this is 2 Samuel 23, verse, where are we, 34, halfway through verse 34. In the midst of this list of names of David's mighty men, Eliam, son of Ahithophel, the Gilonite, and there's Eliam, and at the end of the list is Uriah the Hittite. Uriah the Hittite married Eliam's daughter. So these are two men that David knows. He knows Eliam and he knows Uriah. They're both in his list of mighty men. And Eliam's father, Ahithophel, is one of David's counselors. We're going to read about him a lot in the upcoming chapters. So all three of these people are people that David knows. He doesn't know this woman, apparently. They got him, Uriah got a wife, probably a fairly new wife. Okay, Uriah. Now we read in the laws about warfare back in Deuteronomy, chapter 20. Deuteronomy 20. They're talking about going out to war, and it says at the beginning of Deuteronomy 20, it says, when you go to war against your enemies, when you're about to go out to battle. Okay, so that's what they're doing. They're going to war against Ammon. And it says in verse 5, the officers shall say to the army, has anyone built a new house and not dedicated it? Let him go home, or he may die in battle, and someone else may dedicate it. Has anyone planted a vineyard and not yet begun to enjoy it? Let him go home, or else he may die in battle, and someone else will enjoy it. Has anyone become pledged to a woman and not married her? Let him go home, or he may die in battle, and someone else may marry her. So apparently Uriah doesn't fit any of these criteria. Apparently he's been married, he has a home. I don't know if he has a field or a vineyard, but But I don't think it's a very long marriage, okay? It seems they don't have a kid yet. Uriah and Bathsheba don't have a child yet. Bathsheba has not yet conceived. So it seems and they would. I mean, it's like they would be having kids pretty quickly. You know, it's like it's not like in our culture today where we wait a number of years before we start having kids. You know, like that's not all they did back then. So they're married. Uriah is they've been married long enough that Uriah is not using his engagement to Bathsheba as an excuse to get out of going to war. So they've been married for a little while at least, but not for too long because they don't have any kids yet together, and Bathsheba has not yet conceived of the kid. So they haven't been married for too long. Okay, they've been married for a little while, but not for too long. So Bathsheba is probably in her late teens, probably. You know, they would have gotten engaged and married pretty early back in those days. So, and she's been married, but she's not been married long enough to actually have conceived a child yet. So she's probably 17, 18-ish years old. David doesn't know her, but he knows her husband, he knows her father, and he knows her grandfather. He just doesn't know her. Then David sent messengers to get her. She came to him, and he slept with her. She had purified herself from her uncleanness. The rule, now this would of course be, you know, we read a lot about these purity laws back in Leviticus and elsewhere. Oh boy, purity laws. Leviticus, we're back in that book again. 15. This section right before the part where we talk about the Day of Atonement, it has a bunch of whole laws regarding discharges, things that come out of your body that make you unclean. And there's a lot of different things here, okay? There's a lot of things that men can do to make themselves unclean. You know, discharging semen makes men unclean. But here's something that makes women unclean. Leviticus 15, verse 19, when a woman has her regular flow of blood, the impurity of her monthly period will last 7 days. Anyone who touches her will be unclean till evening. Anything she lies on during her period will be unclean. Anything she sits on will be unclean. Whoever touches her bed must wash his clothes and bathe with water, and he will be unclean till evening. Whoever touches anything she sits on must wash his clothes and bathe with water, and he will be unclean till evening. Whether it is in the bed or anything she was sitting on, when anyone touches it, he'll be unclean till evening. Let's see here. Verse 28, when she is cleansed from her discharge, she must count off 7 days, and after that she'll be ceremonially clean. Actually, I think that might apply to another condition of her uncleanness. But at any rate, when they had a period, 7 days after that, they had to bathe and become clean. You know, wash their clothes, do the bathe, the special ritual bath, and become clean. That meant they would have been spending a lot of their lives unclean. You know, it's like not only would they be unclean during their period itself, however long that lasts, however many days that lasts for them, their period for 7 days after that. So they were unclean a good chunk of the time, but that's what she was bathing for. She was not just taking a random bath, she was taking a ritual purity bath after a period, 7 days after she had finished her last period. So in other words, she's also in a fertile state. Okay, so the timing of this is such that she is now reaching her, peak fertility. So what happens next then shouldn't be a surprise. So they're having a union. We're talking about a young woman, probably in her late teens, maybe early 20s, but I think more than likely in her late teens, who just got done bathing herself from her period, her week-long period of cleanness, following her period, her actual monthly discharge of blood, which means that ended several days ago. And she has cleansed herself from that, which means her body is now fertile. And so she goes back home, And in verse 5 it says, the woman conceived, and sent word to David, saying, I am pregnant. So David sent this word to Joab. That's a problem. We have a single woman married. Her husband is in battle, and he's going to come back and find a heavily pregnant woman greeting him. Maybe even a woman with a kid already by that point, depending on the timing. And where'd that come from? How'd that happen? So David sent this word to Joab. Send me Uriah the Hittite. And Joab sent him to David. Okay? It's like, that seems probably seems a little weird, but they wouldn't have had any reason to think anything was particularly wrong yet. When Uriah came to him, David asked him how Joab was, how the soldiers were, and how the war was going, making small talk, apparently. Then David said to Uriah, go down to your house and wash your feet. So now he's trying to give him permission to go have sex with your wife. He's trying to goad him into doing that without actually telling him to go do that. So Uriah left the palace, and a gift from the king was sent after him. But Uriah slept at the entrance to the palace with all his master's servants, and did not go down to his house. When David was told Uriah did not go home, he asked him, haven't you just come from a distance? Why didn't you go home? Uriah said to David, the ark and Israel and Judah are staying in tents. There's, by the way, another subtle indication there's a difference between Israel and Judah. Are staying in tents. And my master Joab and my Lord's men are camped in the open fields. How could I go to my house to eat and drink and lie with my wife? As surely as you live, I will not do such a thing. So he's showing considerably more honor here than David is. He is not going to treat himself to the comforts of home, as long as his fellow soldiers cannot do so. Uriah probably doesn't understand why he's here anyway. If all he's supposed to do is give a battle update to David about what's happening in Ammon, like anybody could do that. You have designated special runners who travel back and forth, run back and forth to do that. You don't need Uriah. Uriah is one of the mighty men. He's one of the top 30 or so guys in the entire army. So he does not need to be the guy making these special trips back and forth, updating the king on the progress of the battle. That's not his job. So he doesn't know why he's here to begin with. And he is not going to treat himself to the comforts of the home and the flesh, as long as his fellow soldiers can't. That's not what David wants to hear. Then David said to him, stay here one more day, and tomorrow I will send you back. So Uriah remained in Jerusalem that day and the next, so 2 more days. At David's invitation, he ate and drank with him, and David made him drunk. But in the evening, Uriah went out to sleep on his mat amongst his master's servants. He did not go home. We can't get this guy to go home. We can't get him to do what we want him to do. In the morning, David wrote a letter to Joab and sent it with Uriah. So he is sending Uriah back with a letter, which of course clearly he's got sealed up in some sort of parchment or envelope somehow. Uriah has not read this letter, obviously, because in this letter David wrote, put Uriah in the front line where the fighting is fiercest. Then withdraw from him so he'll be struck down and die. You might as well just be writing a letter saying, kill this man. I mean, you might as well, for all intents and purposes, you might as well just be signing this letter saying, draw your sword and kill this man. So Joab has it. Now, Uriah, of course, hasn't read this letter. It's somehow folded up or in a parchment or an envelope of some kind with a seal on it so as to make sure that nobody opens it except for the person it's intended for, which is Joab. So Joab gets this letter, reads it. So while Joab had the city under siege, he put Uriah at a place where he knew the strongest defenders were. He hasn't followed these letters exactly. He hasn't followed these instructions exactly as David has them written down. Because that is just too ridiculous. Like even, it's like that would just get people to ask, what was that all about? Well, why'd you do that? So Joab is following David's instructions, but not exactly in the way that David told him to. So he's putting Uriah at a place where he knew the strongest defenders were. When the men of the city came out and fought against Joab, some of the men of David's army fell. Moreover, Uriah the Hittite died. So Uriah does die, but so do others. He's not going to be the only one whose blood will be shed to cover up this sin. Joab sent David a full account of the battle. He instructed the messenger, "When you have finished giving the king this account of the battle, the king's anger may flare up, because the king is not going to want to hear this. And he may ask you, 'Why did you get so close to the city to fight? Didn't you know they would shoot arrows from the wall?'" This is ancient military strategy 101 here. I mean, nobody would have done this. "Who killed Abimelech, son of Jerubesheth?" Remember that from Judges? When the guy chased the people into a tower and was going to set it on fire. He got close enough because he had a stick on fire. He was going to set it on fire. And as he got close to it, some woman from the top threw a rock on his head and killed him. Then the woman, because he got too close to the tower. He went there because he was trying to set it on fire with a stick that he had set on fire. But he got too close to the tower, and a woman, dropped a rock on his head and killed him. Then the woman threw enough a millstone on him from the wall so that he died in Thebes. "Why did you get so close to the wall?" If he asks you this, then say to him, "Also, your servant Uriah the Hittite is dead." That's the key message that's going to satisfy the king. Now, the messenger doesn't know what's going on, but clearly he's got to wonder something, because this is very strange. Joab doesn't know what's going on, but clearly he's got to wonder something, because this is very strange. The messenger set out, and when he arrived, he told David everything Joab had sent him to say. The messenger said to David, "The men overpowered us and came out against us in the open, but we drove them back to the entrance to the city gate. Then the archers shot arrows at your servants from the wall, and some of the king's men died. Moreover," and he's going to say this without being prompted, "your servant Uriah the Hittite is dead." David told the messenger, "Say this to Joab, 'Don't let this upset you. The sword devours one as well as another.'" Again, that's coded message from David back to Joab saying, that's okay. "Press the attack against the city and destroy it." Say this to encourage Joab. When Uriah's wife heard that her husband was dead, she mourned for him. After the time of mourning was over, and that's probably 7 days, it could be longer, but David wouldn't have wanted to waste any time getting her married and making her officially his wife to cover up this baby she's got growing in her belly. So it probably was his bare minimum possible amount of mourning, which is probably 7 days. After the time of mourning was over, David had her brought to his house, and she became his wife, and she bore him a son. But the thing David had done displeased the Lord.